think racism is dead are unwittingly the biggest perpetrators of racism. They are the ones who are church going and America first talking. So if it's about being church going and America first talking, you'd say, what's wrong with that, Marvin? Well, absolutely nothing, especially if you put Jesus first in that order. But some will put America first and then Jesus, and that topic is, quite frankly, for another time. Where people go off, of course, is when they falsely use Christianity and falsely use their status as Americans. And here's what I mean by that. As Christians, we are to hate sin, not ignore it or run from it. Well, that's some of us is what we do as Christians. We have some Christians who live in a fake kumbaya world by putting their head in the sand and by only listening to a one-way street of daily information. Information that never speaks about the ills of systemic racism, and if you never hear or read about it, then you live in the false narrative. Now, let your mind be renewed and learn about the truth that the black man is the blueprint for mankind.
It has been promulgated down through time that Adam and Eve, and therefore our original parents, were white. And all of our art has depicted them as white. All of the so-called Renaissance art, all the European art, all of the Bible bookstore pictures that you see of Jesus, the apostles, Moses, Abraham, dogs, fleas, and cats, everybody is white.
Wow. Now, when he mentions that everything being white, that made me think back to when I was a kid during the 1970s. Everything I saw was basically white, just like he said. TV programs, majority white. The only black program I can remember at the time was Julia with Diane Carroll, which was a big deal because she was the first black female to have her own show, to lead her own show. I think the other was Bill Cosby. He had the Bill Cosby Show. And also, oh golly, I forgot. The other show he was in with Robert Culp. I think it was I Spy, something like that. But other than that, that was it. That was totally it. But yeah, everything. TV commercials, shows, movies. Now, the black exploitation era started to come in around about early 70s, me being about 10 years old. So all I remember is, again, seeing nothing but white. Everything of major importance, so to speak, you saw white. You saw, especially when it came to Congress, the White House, that kind of thing, politics. Only black person I remember from that era was Barbara Jordan. So yeah, just like you said, everything white.
And it is really an untruth. It has not been correctly presented to the world. I'm not interested, as I've said before, in trying to find everybody to be black. I've gone in my research, I've found some that everybody's black. I mean, everything is black. Even the sky is black, ocean is black, the water is black, everything, God is black, angels are black, everything is black. Well, to me, that's going from one extreme to the other. All I want to do is find out what's the real story, and the Bible tells us, but we've got to get past all of our preconceived ideas and prejudices to get to it. Last time we were dealing with a little basic biology to try to give some scientific validation to some things that we've already found out from the standpoint of the Word of God. I said, and I think that our lesson today will prove it, that Adam and Eve, there is no way in this lifetime that Adam and Eve could have been white. It is a biological and scientific impossibility. Now, I want to go back and pick up where I left off, and so I've got to do a little bit of review. Now, I'm giving you validatable information, information that you can go check up for yourself, because too long preachers have been telling the sheep and the lamb certain things and giving them no basis in proof where they could go check it out. But I have done a lot of research, so I want to give you the benefit of my research so you can go check it out. Don't accept it because I said it. Don't accept it because it sounds good. Don't accept it because it sounds bad. Don't accept it because it sounds right. Don't accept it because it sounds wrong. Accept it because it's validatable and it squares up with the scripture. Now, in the Answers book, 1990, by Ken Ham, Andrew Snelling, and Carl Wheeler. All three authors are creation scientists with degrees in biology, geology, and medicine, respectively. I want to quote from this book because I believe they deal with this question of skin color in a very simple way. Even if you have no background in science of any kind, you will be able to understand their simple presentation. On pages 133 and 134, and I quote, "It is easy to think that since different groups of people have yellow skin, red skin, black skin, white skin, and brown skin, there must be many different pigments or colorings. The fact is, however, that there is only one skin color, melanin. This is a brownish pigment which we all have in special cells in our skin. If we produce only a little melanin, it means that we will be European white. If our skin produces a great deal of melanin, we will be very deep black. And in between, of course, are all shades of brown," end of quote. The Answers book goes on to say, pages 135, 136, 137, 141, 142, 143, 146, and 147, and I quote because I want to put all of this together. "We also need to be aware that one is not born with a genetically fixed amount of melanin, but rather with a genetically fixed potential to produce a certain amount in response to sunlight. For example, if you are a Caucasian, you may have noticed that when your friends headed for the beach at the very beginning of summer, they may, if they spent all their time indoors during winter, have all been more or less the same pale white color. As the summer went on, however, some became much darker than others. In other words, they suntan, they tan, but you never see all white-skinned people tan to identically the same color of tan. There's differences in the tan because of that genetic fixing inside of them to determine how much melanin their skin will produce in response to sunlight. In very dark-skinned people, well, let me go back. As the summer went on, however, some became much darker than others. Even very dark-skinned races are not born with such a skin color. It takes exposure to sunlight to switch on the melanin factories in the skin. I gave an illustration last Sunday of my daughter when she was born, and most people can relate to this. Most black people or people of color can relate to this. Most of our babies that are born are never born the same color they become when they're 2, 3, or 4, 5 years old. They are born very light. In some cases, so light, some questions arise.
Okay, now, Pastor Price is right on point with this because in my family, some questions arose when I was born. Now, I'm told that, and there's a picture of me, as you can see, I was very light to the point of my father's family, my father's side of the family, started to question my mother as to, okay, whose baby is this really? And it incensed my mother so bad, and especially with my father not really, he was having some doubt, God rest his soul, that it had them to break up. Well, they broke up because of that situation. But overall, I am my father's son. And my mother told me the story of this story. Now she told me this maybe about 2 months ago. here I am, 62 now. And she told me this 2 months ago. Now, my mom, she is 81. Yeah, she's still going strong. 81. Cancer survivor at that. Nothing, no cancer detected. She is fully recovered. But anyway, she said that she prayed that I would darken up. She said she would sit me by the window, because I was born in the summer, August 12th. And she said she would sit me by the window, hoping that I would get darker. She just told me this only 2 months ago. Oh boy, I thought I heard all the baby stories of myself. But that I laughed so hard on that one. But yeah, she wanted to darken me up. And then I have family members who, no, I'll backtrack on that. Say even within my own, I got three sons. Okay, now I got Kelvin, Marcus, and Antoine. Now, when you saw Marcus and Antoine, they almost were like twins. People used to think they were twins, and they're a year apart. Marcus born in 87. Excuse me. Antoine born in 87. Marcus born in 86. Kelvin was born in 83. Okay. But with those two people, you used to think that they were twins. And they was basically same skin tone, complexion, you know. But then as Antoine began to grow, and boy did he grow. He is 6'5", about 245 to 250. And I mean, he's like up there. We're having to look up to him. And Marcus, I mean, he just outgrew everybody. Marcus is about what, 6'2". Kelvin, well, he's the runt, even though he's the oldest, but he's the runt. And he is Kelvin's about 5'9". Yeah, about 5'8", 5'9", something like that. And I'm right at 6 feet. Anyway, as Antoine began to grow, he his complexion started to change. He got darker. Yeah, he got darker. So Antoine got darker. The other two pretty much remained, their complexion remained the same. But Antoine got darker. And no, there was no me trying to figure out, hey, is that my kid? No, no, no. All my kids look like me and their mother. There was no such doubt whatsoever. It's just that, and I already knew within the family, I've seen the dynamics of color changes. I have a cousin. She's got four kids. Now, one has passed on, but it's only one. Her son. She's got two daughters, two sons. Lamont, he passed away. Then you have Chris. Now with Chris is Chris is dark chocolate, but the rest of them are light skinned. The rest of Lamont, he was light skinned. The girls, they're light, but Chris is dark. But yet my cousin Teresa and her husband are light skinned. Well, Tony more lighter than her. Teresa is a little bit darker than me, but she's not dark. Chris is dark. And then looking at that dynamic, I look back on Chris's grandmother, Teresa's mother, and she is dark complexion, more darker, than Teresa and so forth. So she is of dark complexion. So therefore, I look at it as Chris getting that from his grandmother, because if you look at both parents, they're not that dark, but yet he's dark. So yeah, with black people, it can vary. And when you have a situation of a family member not being as dark or as light as another, don't get out of whack. It happens.
On occasions, wondering, now wait a minute here, but after exposure to light, then the melanin factories in the skin are turned on, and whatever their genetic disposition is, they will begin to turn that color up to the level of their genetic structure. Okay? It takes exposure to sunlight to switch on the melanin factories in the skin. In very dark-skinned people, the areas such as the palms of the hands and the soles of the feet, which are very rarely exposed to sunlight, generally stay much lighter than the rest of the body. Let's look at a few observations which can help us to explain how many different skin colors can arise in a short time. Because, see, we have to account for all these different shades of coloring in the world. Whenever we use such words as different colors, we are, strictly speaking, referring to different shades of the one color. If a person from a very dark race marries someone from a very white race, their offspring, called mulattoes, are mid-brown. It has long been known that if people of mulatto descent marry, their offspring may be virtually any color, ranging from very black to very white. And I gave you the other illustration about my wife's family. They had, the mother was almost white as a white person. And the father was very, very dark. They had 13 kids. 11 of those kids were all basically mid-brown, like my wife. And one was almost white, and one was almost black. All came from the very same mother and father. So we see this, and many families can relate the same experience. Now, understanding this gives us the clues we need for our overall question. So we must first look in a simple way at some of the basic facts of heredity. Each of us carries in our body information which describes us in the way a blueprint describes a finished building. It determines not only that we will be human beings rather than cabbages or crocodiles, but it also whether we will have, that don't sound right. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me say it again. It determines not only that we will be human beings rather than cabbages or crocodiles, but also whether we will have blue eyes, short nose, long legs, etc. When a male sperm fertilizes an egg, all the information that specifies how the person will be built, ignoring such superimposed factors as exercise and diet, is already present. The human blueprint is written in a code or language convention which is carried on a very long chemical called DNA. The word gene means a small part of that information which carries the instructions for only one feature. In the fertilized egg, where does all the information, its genes, come from? One half has come from the father, carried by the sperm, and the other half from the mother, carried in the egg. We know that skin color is governed by at least 2, possibly more, sets of genes. Now, I want to pause for a moment and make an addendum here. Now, we're reading from scientists, not Christians per se. They are Christians, but not from the standpoint of ministers of the gospel or preachers preaching from a pulpit or theologians teaching in a seminary. We're talking about scientists, biologists, medicine, geologists that are giving us information scientifically. And on top of all of that, these three gentlemen that wrote this book and that are scientists are all white. So you know they're right. That was a joke. Don't take it personally. Don't get hostile, okay? Just wanted to release a little energy there. Now, we know that skin color is governed by at least two, possibly more sets of genes. Let's call them, line one is capital A, capital B. With the correspondingly more silent genes, line two, please, and underline for me, highlight, if you would, gentlemen. The correspondingly more silent genes, small a and small b. Now, the small letters in this case code for a small amount of melanin. So a very dark race, which on intermarriage kept producing only very dark offsprings, they would be, line three, please, they would be capital AA, BB. Remember, they come in pairs, okay? So it would be AA, BB capital. Now, the same situation for a very fair-skinned race would be, line four, please, small AA, small BB. Remember that the capital A codes for a lot of melanin. The small a, small b's code for a small amount of melanin. Children born with, line six, please, born with capital AA, capital BB, who are pure black in the sense of consistently having no other types of offsprings, have no genes for lightness at all. I want you to pick up on this now. Listen, let me say that again and start thinking ahead about the others group and you'll be able to see something. Those children born with capital AA, BB, who are pure black in the sense of consistently having no other types of offspring, have no genes for lightness. Say that. Have no genes for lightness. If they were to marry and migrate to a place where their offspring could not intermarry with people of different colors, all their children will be black. A pure black line will result. Those who are, line seven, please, those who are small AA, now follow this carefully. See, we want to find out where we came from. We want to find out what Adam and Eve were in the beginning. And the racist establishment is telling us and has told us all along that they are white. And I'm going to read some documentation in just a moment that they are white. But they're not basing that on genetic, scientific information. They're basing it on personal color prejudice. And here's why. Here's why. Listen to this. Those who are small AA, small BB are white. If they marry, get this now, if they marry other whites and migrate to a place where their offspring cannot marry other colors, a pure, in the same sense, white line will result.
All right, I'm going to put my spin on it right now. So I'm stopping right here. Now, what I'm going to add to this is in relation to what Pastor Price is talking about. And I've come up with this theory, so to speak, going back to the Tower of Babel. Okay? Now, in the Tower of Babel, in that situation, you had the people wanting to make this tower to be godlike. They were constructing this enormous tower, going to construct an enormous tower to reach heaven. And God was like, hold on. You're moving ahead here. And you're in the framework of unity, but it's in the wrong way. It's going in the wrong direction. But here's the thing, that during that time, everybody spoke the same language. and everybody was of the same color. Now, when God disrupted their coming together party in construction, and remember, he dispersed everybody and made them they went separate ways. Okay, and then they even spoke different languages, because if you're speaking another language, then you're not able to communicate the way you want to. So here's a part of my theory. Everybody was the same color, and everybody spoke the same language. So when they dispersed from the mother country, Africa, they dispersed in other areas of the world. You had some going out towards Europe, Asia, so forth. So when that happens, our bodies also are conducive to the land and the temperature, so to speak, right? You ever notice how white people are more adapted to the cold, aren't they? Come on now, I'm speaking truth here, right? I mean, haven't you had a friend or two, or know someone that's white? And I'm not saying everybody, okay? I'm not saying everybody, but of the majority, I've seen plenty of white guys. It would be 40 degrees out, 30 degrees. They would go outside with a t-shirt on, just like what I have on. Go outside with a t-shirt. Meanwhile, I'm all bundled up with a parka on, hat and everything. I used to work with a guy, he wore shorts year-round, white guy. Wore shorts year-round. Even when it snowed, he wore shorts and a t-shirt. He rarely wore a jacket. I know some white people say, well, he was the exception. But again, think about it. Think about it now. The white people that you've been around, even those that you may not even know, but you've seen them out in the store or whatever, and say be during wintertime, and they won't have a jacket on. They could be in a t-shirt. Not saying all, but I have seen the majority of them who you see with no coat on and just a t-shirt are white people. Now, every now and then you might see a black person, but that is the extreme exception. Well, just like with a black man, our hair, mine's gray right now, but our hair is more conducive to the heat rather than a white man's hair, who is more wavy, and a black man's mostly is coarse. Our hair is more conducive to the heat. A white man's hair is more conducive to the cold. So therefore, our body over time adapted to the climates that we were in. Also, the skin tone, and just like Pastor Price pointed out, when you have people that have branched off with one another, that melanin content, wherever, say like out in the extreme cold of Russia or wherever, somewhere like that, you're not having the sun as much. You're very cold nature climate, and then you're not cohabitating with many black people. So now that melanin, just like he mentioned, drops. So therefore now you got white people. Well, same thing as Pastor Price was saying. So that has been my theory even before hearing about Pastor Price in this situation. But it just makes sense, even if it's not coming from a very scientific viewpoint. It makes sense.
Adam and Eve were the first ones, and they were not white. Couldn't have been. Because if they were white, they would have no genes for dark melanin. Therefore, no dark or blacks, browns, reds, or yellows could ever come out of them.
Okay, allow me to put a bow tie on this. Yes, the black man is the blueprint race. And after seeing this, if you don't want to believe, that's on you. But I'm sure that's hard to fathom for some of you, considering all the lies and the deceptions you've been spoon-fed year after year since you were born, myself included. But it took a while to tear down that hardened clay of lies that form and shape you over the years, that alter your thoughts and sometimes your actions because of what you've been led to think and believe. And we have to realize a system, since its inception, has been in place for well over 200 years, and that system is the United States government that looked at every turn to hold us down. Please don't get me wrong. I've served in the U.S. military for 6 years. I'm proud of where I stay. I still say it's the greatest country on the planet. But I will call a spade a spade. I will call a lie, and the history of this country has been filled with lies, and the history of this country has told its biggest lie when it concerns the black man. And it's not just this country. Others are involved also. For instance, the prejudice of Napoleon, who wanted to alter the noses of the Sphinx to make them look white. So he had his soldiers to shoot the edges of the noses so they wouldn't look so broad-nosed. You see, lies will take you in many directions, but the truth is one way. And I'll end it with this. I have another theory, and this theory is why the black man has been treated like he has. And what I'm saying is, because we are the blueprint, we've been targeted by Satan. We've been caught in the middle of a battle between God and Satan. And although, to be honest, it's a battle that Satan has already lost. He just doesn't realize it. A battle Satan is basically having to himself, because there is no other being that stacks up to God. So that's my theory, that Satan has an order against the black man. And this is why we have been targeted for so many years and centuries, which is why we need, as a people, to be more inclined to follow Jesus, to seek after him, and because he is our future. Renew your mind, enough said.